Welcome to the Feel Good Lab podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Gresh. Join me as we bring together the brightest minds in health and wellness, covering topics from sleep and nutrition to exercise and mindfulness. Our goal is to give you actionable advice to optimize your health and ultimately to feel good. All right, you jumped the gun a little bit with that intro, Dad. But with that being said, welcome back to another episode of the Feel Good Lab podcast. This is an episode I've been waiting to have happen ever since we met Kahseim for the first time. One of my favorite things is that we didn't know each other before we hopped on the podcast. And so I wanted to keep that dynamic the same today and get the two of you together because there's really a couple of reasons. One, you have, I would say, at the top of your values, two of the same things. And it's family, probably number one, and wellness, but not just wellness for ourselves, wellness for our community. And I think those two things are where we're going to spend a lot of the time today talking about. But the other thing, Dad, is kind of what you just said. We don't know so much. In fact, there's so much more that we don't know than what we do know. And what you both bring to the table is this idea of like, you don't have it figured out yet. We're just still trying to figure it out and bring this education to the world, to our community, to our families, to ourselves. I think most importantly, what are we doing looking in the mirror with ourselves? So, Dad, obviously most of our listeners know you, background in pharmacy, but really understanding that functional medicine and looking at our own body and what nature can provide us is oftentimes a better starting point than the traditional medical model. And Kahseim, who, as I've gotten to know you, probably my favorite thing is that you practice what you preach more than anybody else I know. It's not telling people what to do, it's doing for yourself and then letting people witness it and look at how happy you are and how healthy you are, and it motivates all of us. So without further ado, I'm excited. I'm going to hopefully shut up for most of the podcast and let you guys go into it. But welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited too. This is an honor to be here on the farm and in the studio and with your dad. It's a pleasure to finally get to meet you.
Same here.
Thank you.
So first question that we'll kind of kick it off with is we talk a lot at the Feel Good Lab about diet, nutrition, and kind of, really looking, we are what we eat. But at the same time, we're not really experts in that. I think nutrition, supplements, stuff like that. But Kahseim, we look at you as kind of an expert. Why don't you explain to us a little bit about how you think about diet and how that plays into wellness as a whole for you?
Well, I've learned a lot about diet. There's always so many fads and so many bits of information, scientific and otherwise, that you can pull into to make that decision. For me, over the years, I've been really trying to simplify that a lot. If we look at, down to the bare bones of what we should be eating what's in our environment. Now, whether or not we should be in that environment in the first place is a whole nother conversation. But we really want to stick to raw, ripe, fresh, seasonal, local plant foods. That's going to be the abundance of what we should put into our body. Things that are easily digestible, things that are free from any of the toxins from our environment when we can. A lot of times we're unable to kind of delineate and make those choices. But just trying to simplify what we do and take that burden off of our digestive system. When we go to the grocery store or we go to a fast food place or even a restaurant, how many ingredients are in each thing that you're eating? If you were to separate all those things, okay, that's a lot to do logically. Now, what does your body have to do? What does your gut have to do? What's the formula to break all that down successfully and easily so that way you can have a great elimination, not have any mucus or buildup that's stuck to the system, feel energized instead of feeling like going to sleep when you're done. So that's my first thought when you ask me that question, is to just really simplify. And now for me personally, I've experimented with a lot of different things. I've been a vegan for 7 years. This past January 1st was year 7 for me. I started off just eating raw foods. It was a challenge for me. And then I incorporated some cooked grains and some nuts and seeds and some other beans and things like that. And I found some success. I've been able to sustain that. Do I eat the occasional processed, soy-based, corn-based Beyond Burger or something like that? Absolutely. I do like the sensory, sensation. And for 30 plus years, I was an omnivore. I was eating everything. I was the guy that would go eat 2 steamed cheeseburgers, double meat, double cheese, double bacon, fries, the whole 9 yard, and then go home and have dinner and not tell my wife that I ate before I got there. But when I thought about what I was actually doing to my body, even though I really didn't notice any kind of health detriments or anything like that, I really felt bad about that way of living. It was very unconscious. It was led by society's norms and what I was told that I had to eat and how I should eat. So, lately it's been a very conscious journey for me, looking at ingredients, looking at sources, making the decision, am I really hungry? Am I craving something? Is it the certain time of day when I'm noticing this pattern where I want chocolate or I want something sweet? Can I ignore that for a little while and see what happens? So my dietary practice is really an experiment, an ongoing experiment, which is tough for my wife and son sometimes, but they tend to fall in line too.
What would you add to that, Dad?
So I would add, I'm more an expert in biochemistry and physiology and not in food. And so I love hearing your perspective. It's interesting, as Ryan said, we are what we eat. How can we not be? So everything that goes into our bodies participates in creating our physiology. And we lose sight of that when, many times you have a conversation with people about diet and the focus is on calories or fat or protein. And, when you look at it, one of the things I believe and learned over the years, there is no one diet that is good for everybody. We're so unique and individualized in our physiology that what might be good for one person, and we know this, we look at the Eskimos, and what do they eat and survive on would probably be very detrimental to somebody who grew up around the rainforest. And so how we evolved as a species kind of gives us a clue, or at least me a clue, how we might want to choose to eat and support that evolution. And which is kind of similar to what you just said as far as eating local, eating what you are in season, fresh. One of the things that I've learned over the years is that in our food processing, we've created all these new to nature chemicals, which are new to our bodies. And our bodies don't necessarily know how to work with them. And in many cases, what we're learning about in medicine and functional medicine is that your food is either contributing to your health or to your demise. And often the case is it's not contributing to your health.
Amen.
So
That's bold. And I think one of the cool synergies about everything we're doing is when we first met, Kahseim, I was telling you about the food inflammation test, which we're really happy we got out on the table there, and partnered with KBMO Diagnostics. The second I showed it to you, you knew all about it.
Yeah, I had already gone through it.
You had already gone through it. So maybe share a little bit about your experience, because I think what we just said, there's no one-size-fits-all diet. In fact, doing some of the diagnostics to understand what is best for your body is one of the most beneficial things that you can do.
Yeah. At the time, both my wife and I were having some skin conditions, and we kind of did our own research online and on YouTube, and we called it tinea versicolor. So it was a little discoloration of the skin in certain spots of the body. So we used some topical creams, and we remedied some of those situations, but it was kind of nagging. It would go, would come, depending on temperature, how much we were sweating, different things like that. So we went to go see our naturopath, Dr. Yvette Witten. She's at Adonai Optimal Wellness, which was in Madison, now it's in Monroe. But anyhow, she recommended that we do a couple of things. One of them was ozone therapy, which we have not done yet, intravenous ozone therapy. And she swore by it and said it'll remedy the entire system. It'll kind of go through and fix whatever needs to be fixed. So that's something that's still on the docket. But we did a gut test, we did a microbiome test, and a food inflammation test. And one of the things that I learned, that some of the foods that I were eating, all be them plant-based, all be them, some of the top tier foods that are recommended to us in society, were causing some problems in my gut. Now, I was unaware of any physical symptoms. I wasn't, when I ate a sweet potato, which was my red, I never noticed anything. But when I saw it there, printed out, plain in sight, I said, okay, we're done with that. Jalapenos was another one. I love spicy food, but with jalapenos comes all peppers, so got rid of all peppers. Peanuts. I'm a peanut butter guy. I was eating peanut butter every day. Got rid of that. Whole wheat. No more bread. What are you going to do now? So I've had to make a lot of huge adjustments, and I cut them out for over a year. So this was October of 2020. And I cut everything out, and I just had a sweet potato for the first time last week when we went out to eat. And I'm looking at my wife across the table like, should I do it? Should I do it? She's like, do it. So I ate it. It was delicious, but I didn't notice anything. Does that mean I'm going to continue to eat them as I did before? Probably not, because logically in my mind now, I'm saying, maybe I should stay away from that. So the recommendation that I got was to give it about a year and then reintroduce things slowly, see how you feel. So we'll see how it goes.
What do you think about the reintroduction, Dad? It's something that we've been talking a lot about.
So, again, the first thing I'm going to say is there's so much about our immune system we don't understand. And what we've learned in doing this type of testing and in the science is that our bodies can make these immune globulins. And in this case, it's an immune globulin G, IgG. And in some cases, our body will stop producing the IgG if we stop eating the food. In other cases, it doesn't stop producing it. And so we don't know whether it is or isn't gonna. So by reintroducing the food and then paying attention to, for at least a week, how your body is responding, gives you a clue as to whether or not you can maybe continue to consume that food on an irregular basis. We wouldn't suggest you go back to eating it every day or all the time, because chances are your body will then respond again, producing the IgG, the complement, and then the inflammation. So, again, some foods, I would say gluten is a never, always. That is going to be, that's not healthy for anybody. This test just came out to show that it influences our barrier function, again, our gut function, in everybody that consumes it. So gluten in today's world is problematic. And so I would say stay away from forever, if possible, or at least very limited. Other foods we may be able to reintroduce and not have a negative impact. It takes, what we've discovered with doing this test is if you have one insult of a food that your body is making the IgG complement, that inflammation can last 2 to 3 weeks.
Wow.
So if you're consuming it even on an irregular basis and you're consuming it once every 2 weeks, your body doesn't know what it's like to be without that inflammation. And so the longer you can go, once you identify the foods, the lower your inflammatory burden, and then reintroducing the food is we're not sure. Why would your body, I have a friend who's did the test. He's allergic to shellfish. Shellfish showed up on this test as well. Now we're talking 2 different responses because his allergy is mediated by a different immune globulin. So he never consumes shellfish, but his body is still producing the IgG complement to shellfish.
Popped up on mine too.
So, how does that happen when we don't know. I really wish we had more of an understanding, but the reality is our immune systems are still very complex.
And sensitive too. One of the things I heard was it could be just cross-contamination at a restaurant or something that you frequent. If they have some things that are getting into others, it might be that just small microbial amount that throws everything off.
Exactly.
Wow. So another of my favorite things, Kahseim, about you is that you were a teacher, and not just any teacher, you were a health and gym teacher. And to me, first of all, I do think that we need to take responsibility for our own health. It's easy to sit here and tell other people what to do, and that's the ultimate reason that I really respect you. But also, you were changing the lives. I think you were Teacher of the Year last year, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. And really my question revolves around how do we make a bigger impact on society when it comes to health and wellness, but more importantly, I think, are the kids, because you get programmed into these ways, and if you can start in middle school or high school, think about how the trajectory of somebody's life who understands these things when they're that young versus figuring it out. Like for me, I didn't start figuring it out until I was in my 30s.
Yeah, being made to feel safe, being supported, being loved, being seen and heard. I just read something the other day that said being heard is indistinguishable to being loved. It's the same feeling. So when someone really feels like you hear them at their soul level, then that's love right there. And that's something that I've been practicing with my students since I started teaching. More so in the last probably 10 years consciously. But, when I used to get reviewed by my vice principals and my evaluators, they would tell me about all these things that I should be doing, things that I wasn't documenting or planning out, But then at the end they say, but you're doing that anyway. Some really good teachers, some teachers will have this innate ability to do that even though they're unconscious of it. So I've heard that time and time again. So I knew I was kind of on the right track with what I was doing. And also the feedback that I got from the student body consistently was, Outlaw, you're my favorite teacher. Outlaw, I love when you just listen to me. I can really tell that you're here for me, and I really appreciate that. These aren't kids that I had to teach some mind-blowing concept to. I just had to be there. These are kids that don't have that at home. They don't have it in the hallway. They don't have it when they go to the next class. So, time and time again, I'd find, a group of 5, 6, 7, 8, or even more students hanging out in my room. Like, guys, the bell rang. You're going to be late to class. Like, don't worry about it. We want to talk to you. It got to the point where I'm in my office during break time and people are like coming in like it's a doctor visit, and they're sitting down in a chair. Sometimes they're crying. Sometimes they're smiling. Sometimes we're laughing and sharing, stories. But I knew that there was something about the way that I was handling myself in the building that was right. And I was flattered, I was honored, and it was a great privilege to receive that acknowledgement by my high school that I was Teacher of the Year. But as I said in my acceptance speech, so to speak, it all comes back to safety, support, and love. You provide those 3 things, especially for a child, early on or later in life. That really hits home. And that's the thing that I think we all need, not just kids, not just students, but everybody.
And I mean, you partnered, I want to talk about the book a little bit,
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that's really brought us together here at the farm. You partnered with a student of yours that did all the illustrations, came out amazing. And so, Dad, I think I've told you a little bit about it, but actually, why don't you explain a little bit about what the book is?
So years ago, 2016, I started a bunch of things in 2016. I started a integrative health and healing master's program at the Graduate Institute. I was doing an MBSR program that's developed by John Kabat-Zinn. It's an 8-week program of mindfulness. And I was also doing my 200-hour yoga certification. It all happened in August of 2016. And in my mindfulness course, we learned a meditation, and it didn't have a name. I asked where it came from. My teacher, Sharon Gutterman, God bless her, said that she didn't know where it came from, but it's here. So take it and use it and run with it. I called it We Are Enough. And I used it with kids. I've used it in yoga classes. I've used it with adults at faculty meetings, and it always hit home. People are feeling refreshed. Some people are, tears are sprouting from their eyes. And it's something that I felt really deeply. So I knew that there was some synergy when I provided it. So one day I'm sitting at school and I just start writing it out, and I start adding to it and adding little phrases and things that rhyme. And then when I'm done, like 10 minutes later, I have this whole script. And I'm like, I think I just wrote a children's book. So this was 3 years ago. And I think it was about 2 years ago. And I immediately remembered a conversation I had with a former student, Amanda Dokas, who was an artist in high school, went on to UMass Dartmouth to get her degree, and she's an illustrator, and she's a talented artist. So I called her up immediately and said, hey, remember that conversation we had about maybe working on a project? Here it is. And she was gung-ho right from the start. She took it, ran with it, and basically created an illustrated version of my words that I would not have been able to do without her. And I'm forever grateful for that. And with the help of, guardian angels all around me, we got to print the book. We've got to get to physical copies, and I'm sharing those with people all around the country that have had wonderful things to say about it. And I just want to get it in the hands of every single child and family in the world, really. Yeah.
And I think it's a lot more than children. I read the book, and I read it like it's written for me. I think when I look at what's going on in the world, we get tricked that we're not enough everywhere we look. The TV is the number one. Anything that's ran, any marketing is just saying, you're not enough, buy this. This will make you enough. That is a rat race that I think is part of the problem. And when we look at we are enough, we have enough, we can be healthy. Those sort of things that, to me, that's the future. And I get excited about kind of the state of the world right now because people are ready to make a change. I think we're understanding that if we keep going on this trajectory where we're getting sicker and sicker, even outside of COVID, we're finding that there's more and more chronic disease, what you specialize in, but there's a solution. And I think you said it, Dad. Most disease is not from lack. It's from overabundance. Most of our disease is caused from too many toxins, eating inflammatory foods, right? So what would you add to that, Dad?
First of all, I really applaud you and appreciate that story and where it comes from. We're all children. We are just children in adult bodies. And so what you just said about the message, it applies to everyone. The other thing that you said that really kind of struck me was I'd never heard it put this way, but you said hearing somebody is, I think I heard you say, relative to the same emotion that you get when you feel loved. And one of the things that we focus on in functional medicine is hearing the patient. And we get feedback constantly from patients. It's the first time I've ever felt like somebody actually listened to me. And the patients all have information about whatever is dis-ease in their life, in their story. And so, just sharing your story and how you apply it to children, we're applying it to patients in a similar fashion. And I never realized that same emotion of love is carried in that hearing. But it makes total sense. And, love is the solution. And, I saw somewhere a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King, and I'm going to try and remember it. It had to do with dark will never wipe out darkness. Only light can wipe out darkness.
Yeah.
Hate will never cure hate. Only love can cure hate. And
I have that flag hanging up in front of my house, right in front of our garden. And my wife just came home with it one day and put it there. So, the fact that you've seen it, you feel it, the fact that I have it there, there's a lot of truth in that, and that's a beautiful acknowledgement.
Yeah. So, it's all about, in my opinion, education. If we want to change the world, we've really got to work on getting our message, getting it out to people. When you say starting with the children, we kind of chatted a little bit beforehand, and that is probably one of the most core, fundamental processes, is setting that foundation in children. And the message of you are enough can't come early enough.
No.
And as you said, Ryan, we're getting that mentioned to us all the time that we're not enough. And yet, it's amazing. We're the most creative force on the planet. And we're stifling ourselves in many ways because we're not recognizing that we are enough. And I love that about your book, that, that's such an important message, and bringing it to everyone.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I mean, we come here with nothing. We leave with nothing. When a child arrives in our arms, this little bundle of joy, this ball of potentiality and possibility, that baby has to know that we, you, me, the people that are surrounding you and love you, are all that you need. You don't need anything else but what is right here, right? And I'll hold you as close as I can to that for as long as I can. And that's kind of the crux of the book is when I wrote it and when I created it in my mind, and then when Amanda added her beautiful illustrations to it, that's what I see. I see people reading that to a young child before they can even logically process it, and keep reading it to them until they can. So that pathway is set neurologically, spiritually, it's set in them, and then they can go out in the world and do some amazing things,
And kind of how this connects back to maybe some of the demographic that's listening in on the podcast. You talked about bedside manner a little bit, and it might have been before we got on, but one of my favorite quotes is, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And it's this idea of the expectations that we set in our own brain are oftentimes, I think, kind of the way that things play out for us, and that self-doubt or just doubt. And so if you're working with a physician in potentially the conventional model, and you have 5 minutes with them and you don't have a chance to explain what's going on, and that lack of connection, to me, plays a really detrimental role in our care, versus having somebody that spends the extra time, and works with them. One of the biggest challenges, and I want to kick it to you guys and see how we fix this possibly, is, the insurance model is kind of, you said this to me one time, Dad, when I was growing up. How much money do you spend on your car every year? And it was thousands of dollars. I love my cars. How much money do you spend on your body? Zero. And it's been, now I spend a little bit, but I still spend more money on my car than I do on my body. I only get one body. I've already had 4 cars. So how is that? How are we born into a world where we don't really appreciate this vehicle that we have in our body and take care of it to the optimum of our ability? And how do we do that? How do we change the narrative around this to be more fun and proactive and easy? Today it feels hard. When you tell someone they got to spend $500 a month on XYZ that's going to improve their wellness, most people are, will insurance cover that? And if it's no, they don't even consider it. And I don't blame them either. I understand all the burdens of daily life. But if we really, if all we have is our health as the keystone of our lives, then why would that not be a no-brainer to spend $500?
Mind if I tap into this one real quick?
Oh, go ahead.
I think it's because we are not aware of our mortality. We live inside of our heads and we think we're going to be here forever. And only until life smacks us right in the face and says, no, that's not true, then you really realize that. So in the meantime, we're spending untold amounts of money on clothing our body, dressing it up to make it look attractive to the world, taking pictures of it, taking it from this part of the world to another part of the world. We spend a lot of money on what we do with our body. But in terms of our health, it might not even translate to dollars. Sometimes it does when we have to do a reversal, like we got to reverse diabetes. We have to reverse some of these chronic illnesses that we might have. We may have to go spend a little money and invest in that. But it might just be spending the time and the energy to take care of this thing, because it's a self-sustaining organism, right? So if we give it the right fuel, I always used to joke with my dad. He would say, I put the good stuff in my car, right? The 93 octane. And but then what are you having for lunch? Oh, I stopped at KFC. Okay. And this is not just to throw any one person under the bus, but I hear this story over and over and over again, So we do take better care of our machinery and our toys than we do ourselves, but our body's just a toy. One day we're going to have to put that toy on the shelf and move on.
Yeah, we face this issue quite a bit. And one of the things that I kind of came up with to kind of cut to the chase is I ask somebody who's contemplating investing in their health to say, hey, I want to picture yourself at 95 years old sitting on your front porch. You could be sitting there in a wheelchair, hooked up to a pump, and not have your health. Be alive, but not have your health. Or you could be sitting saying, I'm going to get up and play with my grandchild now. And the difference is you've invested in your retirement. How can you not think about investing in your health when you retire? And that's what it really is. It's a decision to invest in your health. Now, you talk about reversing diabetes. What's wonderful is we have the tools that we can do that. We can also use those same tools to prevent it. And when we start looking at functional medicine, we have results that are unheard of in conventional medicine. And that's why I love it, is we see patients improving. Their testing would go from abnormal to say you have a disease to back in the normal range, to say, well, the disease might be in remission or you might not have that disease anymore. We have those same tools where we talk about what can we do to provide for the body that's going to give it the nutrition that's required. What we can take away from the body that's harming it. And it's about deciding where we're going to spend our money. And, so it is really, when you look at it in terms of an investment, you turn it around and say, what are you willing to invest in? And, you can have all the money in the world sitting on your porch in a wheelchair and hooked up to a pump, or you can have your health. And we have the tools to do that. And so, but it's really changing that mindset, that perspective to say, I am going to invest in me, in my body, in my performance, so that I can age much more gracefully than if I didn't pay attention to it or I don't invest in it.
And I think people would do very well to have a conversation with someone like yourself prior to getting smacked with that traumatic event, that health diagnosis or disease diagnosis that puts them on this downward spiral. Because then you got fear, anxiety, and how are you going to make a decision when your mind is clouded with that? That's where people usually end up with allopathic medicine, conventional medicine, and then we know how that goes.
Yeah. Thought experiment, and I think it was somebody in this room who gave it to me, but I've been saying it so much I forget who it was. It's Kahseim. Tomorrow, I'm giving you $100 million. Right? Think about that for a second. I mean, is that one of the things that you couldn't even imagine how amazing that would be, right?
Right.
Now, but there's one caveat. It's your last day that you get to live. Do you take the 100 million?
Not a chance.
Not a chance. A billion? Do you take a billion?
Not a chance.
Not a chance. Do you take 100 billion?
No amount of money.
Exactly. No amount of money. And it takes, I've been saying it gives me shivers because I'm like, no amount of money. I think about money, unfortunately, more than I think about health. And we're running a health and wellness business. Money is just so top of mind. It's really not that important at all. I bet you when you're on your deathbed, you don't think about money at all.
No.
Probably the only thing you think about is your health.
Yeah. Squeezing out a little more time.
A little more time. Yeah. And so, we always like on these podcasts to try to be actionable for people. And, I think I know where you would go with this, but I'll ask it anyways. With all the things that you see between your students and your family and us and your friends, where do you think people could just spend a little bit of energy, kind of like 80-20 rule, 20% of the energy to make 80% of the change? I often see the 80-20 rule show up in my life. Is there any areas that you think are low-hanging fruit that could really get us on this track, this path to recovery?
Absolutely. And I tell this to people all the time. If you do not have a spiritual practice, if you do not have a contemplative practice that you are stuck, that you are committed to every single day, then I would develop that ASAP, tonight, right now. That's going to provide you with the time to sit in stillness and allow the answers to reveal themselves to you. You don't need to sit and talk to somebody like me or you or anybody to get those answers. Sometimes it helps. When your judgment is clouded, when there's things that are in the way and you can't seem to get through the weeds, you might need somebody to come through with the proverbial machete and hack down some things so you have that purview. But if you sit in silence and allow some of that rumination, some of those clouds to move away, then you will be guided by something much greater than what you identify as yourself. Some people call it God, some people call it spirit, some people call it universe, but the answers are there. We just have to be still enough and listen. So by doing that, now, okay, I come out of my meditation, I open my eyes, instantly, gratitude. Wow, I feel refreshed. I feel lucky to be here. I feel happy about all the things that I have. I feel excited about the possibilities that exist. What am I going to do? I'm going to walk into the kitchen. I'm kind of hungry. What am I going to go grab? As soon as you go to grab something, you're going to be aware of how that is going to affect your body, physically, nutritionally, energetically, and you'll be allowed the space to make a better decision. So I think it starts there. Then from there, that, it layers on top of the next thing. So maybe you want to go out and go for a walk, get some sunshine. Maybe you want to go to the gym. Maybe you want to spend time with a loved one. Maybe you want to heal some traumas and forgive somebody that you were angry at because that clarity is now there. So there's a whole bunch of things that we can add on to that, but I would start with that alone. Just a mindful practice, prayer, meditation, sitting in silence, and then move from there.
What do you think, Dad?
I love it.
Where would you go?
I do that. And I believe that has shifted my perspective. And I have the saying, change your perspective, change your life. And, allowing and accepting. And I think I shared with you, one of the things that I've learned to practice is gratitude. And it takes effort. But there's never a moment in time where we don't have the ability to change what we think about. We always have that ability. And so shifting your perspective, either in sitting in meditation or in practicing, what am I grateful for right now, this moment? And do that as much as possible. I believe that gratefulness is the pathway to enlightenment. I just have come up with that in my mind that is the practice that I'm going to use. And it's purposeful. I actually have intent to figure out what it is in my life that I can be grateful for right now. Because I can do the opposite. I can say, oh, I don't have enough money. I don't have a nice car. I don't have my looks aren't what I want them to be. We are enough.
Amen.
And so it comes full circle back to that message. And I think that feeling the gratefulness in your body allows you to actually make better choices. And so I think it does. It creates that pattern that we want to see, that we want to exhibit. And it's passionate, and who wouldn't do with more passion in their lives? Right?
I'm so glad you brought gratitude up. I always look at it like a balloon, and we're filling it up. When you fill it up with gratitude, there's no room for anything else. So when you have that and hold that, just your breath, sharing space with great people. We don't have to have the money in the car and the success. We just have each other, and this opportunity to share. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Gratitude all day.
Yeah, that's what I love.
Well, with that being said, would you mind walking us through your meditation?
Absolutely.
I think it'd be perfect timing.
Absolutely. So, whoever's listening, us here, we're already in a pretty comfortable position. We want to try to scoot towards the front of our chair a little bit so the back's not rested. That causes the spine to align, right? Our spine's our antenna, so when we can align that, we can be in tune to the energy that's around us. We take our hands and we place them on our thighs with the palms facing upward. Don't try to stretch the fingers open, just allow them to stay open naturally. And then if you feel comfortable enough, you can close your eyes and slightly lift your chin. And with your eyes closed, try to maintain a mild focus right in between the eyebrows. And while you're sitting here in a relaxed state, just start to notice your breath, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the nose. Don't try to extend the breath, just allow it to be exactly where it is right now. Appreciate it. Show it gratitude. And as you continue to watch the breath in its natural state, I'm going to give you some affirmations. And after I give you each affirmation, I invite you to take a deep inhalation and a long exhalation. And we'll start by taking a deep inhalation and a long exhalation. What I have is enough. Inhale. Exhale. What I do is enough. Inhale. Exhale. What I am is enough. Inhale. Exhale. I am here and I am alive, and that is enough. Inhale. Exhale. Again, gently watch the breath, your inhalation and exhalation, appreciating the fact that you can take in this life-giving air, breathing out, exhaling any stress, any tension, any stale CO2. We'll do that again, taking a deep inhalation and a long exhalation. And then keeping the eyes closed, slowly bringing the hands together right at the center of our chest. Some people would say heart center, palms connected. Showing a bit more gratitude for the time that we have to share, the ability to spend our valuable life together. And then if you feel so inclined, you can start to rub the hands back and forth, creating a bit of friction and a bit of heat. So we start off slowly at first, and then a little bit faster. And when you feel like you've generated some heat that you can physically feel, bring the hands directly over the eyes, over the face, blocking out any light. And then slowly dragging the hands down the face, over the eyes, allowing the light in the room to hit your eyelids, bringing the hands back together, the center of your chest, and slowly, very slowly, open your eyes. I am enough. You are enough. We are enough.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You were born for this.
I think so too.
And one of the things I've been trying to do is ask the universe for what I want. And one of the things that all of us in this room want is to get your message out there. So hopefully there's somebody listening that this really resonated with. But let's just end this podcast a little bit about your book. When do you expect it to come out? One of the things that I think is we need you doing exactly what you just did at every school that I know of. And I think you have a gift, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. Yeah. Where do you want to take this thing? How can people that are listening help you get this word out to the world?
Well, as you said, I was born for this. I was born to support. I was born to help. I was born to be a resource for people who might be struggling, as I think we all are in our own ways. We have gifts to give. And this is a gift that I've been able to cultivate over some time with some intent. And now my wish is to offer it to everybody. So with the book, I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks to get it out in mass production. I've got Amazon set up. You want to grab that? Sure. Here's the pre-published copy, the physical copy of the book that I'm ever so grateful to be able to hold in my hand. This is my baby. This is a creation of love from myself and Amanda that we finally get to hold. And as I said, I created the Amazon account. I'm all set to fire it out there and let it go global. I'm just waiting on a few reviews that I've gotten some already that are going to be stellar and go right on the back. I'm going to slap the barcode on there and have it available to families and children everywhere. So coming real soon.
Well, we can't wait. Thank you, Kahseim. Thank you, Dad. I look forward to a lot more conversations. You guys are pillars of light, I think, and really you guys are the core of what we're trying to do. We care a lot about the products that we make at the Feel Good Lab. Way more important are the people behind it and the education and the how we can help people. We can help people without products. Products are important and they give you a jump start, but this type of stuff, spreading this knowledge, is way more important to us. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gene, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.